Hello, I'm Hannah Melser, host of Green Watch, your locally produced and sourced news station. Today we're going to be talking about the turmoil at KPFT, a local community radio program, which also broadcasts on 90.1 FM. With us today is P.K. McCary, who is a KPFT local station board member, and Adriana Casanave, who is a Pacific National board director. So on Friday morning of last week, Dr. Kamau, I apologize.
That's okay.
Was terminated. He was the station manager for KPFT. That happened in the morning. By noontime, protesters had gathered at the station and were refusing to leave. Subsequently, police were involved, and there was also a scuffle as well. This Tuesday, July 18th, 3 more members of the station were also terminated. So we're here today to talk about why those terminations occurred and kind of the background. As far as background for KPFT, the station has been embroiled in both financial troubles at the local level and the national level. So we just wanted today start this discussion with kind of telling us what is the mission of KPFT.
Well, it's the mission of a community radio, listener-sponsored programming that includes news, music, talk, and the station has a responsibility to communities there that are doing different things. I mean, whether or not the issue is news and making sure that the news is progressive. We're a progressive station, or we're considered a progressive station. That's in doubt sometimes. But its mission is to build cultures of peace, justice, and healing through these various programmings. And while we've been known in the past of being peace radio, we're far from it right now. We have struggles that are a microcosm of what's happening in this country, I do believe, more than anything.
Okay, so some of the turmoil seems to focus around the termination of Dr. Kamau. Can you tell?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Dr. Kamau's firing is a symptom of some greater problems that are going on at Pacifica nationally and especially locally at KPFT. I know that the hesitation a lot of times is to talk about the racism that permeates both areas of the Pacifica Foundation, both locally at local stations and within the national board. But it is more of we're asking the wrong questions, because it seems like that those who broke it, you know, they broke the toys, are blaming the last person who sat on it when it came apart. And in that case, that's where I think Dr. Kamau is the symptom of a greater problem. The funding, the turmoil between staff, between different factions happened long before he got there, even though he's been a part of Pacifica and KPFT for more than 20 years. He had a program for what, more than a decade? Maybe close to 2, and he has been a giver of it, and he was chosen by the board to fill in until we set out to find a new manager, of which he could have applied for, or he can apply for that position too. But his role was not to hold the seat warm for the next general manager. It was to come to be the general manager. He just didn't get hired through the regular channels. But he was chosen by the local station board as the best choice out of a number of people who were considered to take the place of the general manager that had been fired, but allowed to resign to save face rather than to be summarily fired, which might have interfered with anything else that he might have wanted to do. So, in a way, it's not about Dr. Kamau. The unfortunate thing is the first African-American general manager comes to KPFT, starts strengthening the staff, starts working with the programmers. The programmers hadn't had any kind of meeting or anything until Dr. Kamau came. And he was reaching across the aisles on a number of ways. And from April 17th to the 14th, when he was summarily or unilaterally fired by Mr. Bill Crosier, he wasn't fixing the problems to their standards accordingly. But the reason he wasn't fixing it was because Mr. Crosier himself was breaking it. He was paying people without talking to him. He encouraged him to hire a woman to help us raise money to the tune of, 5 figures. And he kept the old general manager in a position, a paid position, who was a turmoil maker. And I don't say those things lightly. And I think that at some point it'll be proven, because we are asking for an investigation into the dealings of Mr. Bill Crosier, including these firings now.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Yes. The reality is that the foundation, we have at this point, we have an interim executive director, the Pacifica Foundation. The Pacifica Foundation have 5 stations, one in Houston, KPFT, one in New York, WBAI, one in Washington, D.C., WPFW, one in Los Angeles, KPFK, and one in Berkeley, California, KPFA. This is and we have more than 200 affiliates, but five stations. We call it sister station. KPFT is just part, because the foundation, the organization by itself is Pacifica Foundation. It's a 501c3. We are in turmoil because since last year, the fight for power in this country, we mimic the society where we live, right? The same problem that we have at the national level, we have it in Pacifica. We cannot be, an island. We have an interim executive director now that happened to be one of the members from KPFT, one of the local station board members. The reality is that Dr. Kamau never, last year, the previous board, elect, because we have a general manager that during almost 15 years, we didn't have results. Little number. 2005, the station had more than 10,000 members. 2016, less than 5,800. And nothing happened. Never met the goals. Keep hiring money. Keep hiring employees, and never been accountable. Then last year, the board decided, well, that's it. We need a new general manager. And the board select among a list of candidates, and the interim executive director at that time select Dr. Kamau. Dr. Kamau was told in January that he will be the general manager, the interim general manager, like Piquet said. In the meantime, that the board make the right selection. You put ads, and you make a pool of candidates that, according to Pacifica and KPFT bylaws, the local station board have make that pool of candidates, and the executive director choose from those pool of candidates. That happened. Dr. Kamau was told that. The previous general manager, without the knowledge of the people, first of all, was allowed not to resign, not to be fired, to let him resign, and they keep moving when the powers at the national level change, that come at the same time that in our national government happen. When those powers change, instead of going out in January, was February, was March, was April. Basically, April 15 was the last day that he was the general manager. In the meantime, that Dr. Kamau couldn't do anything because you have another general manager. In April 15, the last general manager, the former one, step aside. We think that that was all. Then we discover that he was hired by the interim executive director as a consultant.
Well, we weren't told.
We were not told. We discovered that a week ago or something, or 2 weeks ago. Not only was hired as a consultant, was hired as a consultant with something that is not allowed in our bylaws and in any nonprofit corporation. You cannot hire a consultant and pay, for example, health care to him and his family. That is not allowed, but that happened. When the board discovered this, we start questioning the interim executive director. Last week was our LSB meeting, the week before. Last Wednesday. We have an LSB meeting, a local station board meeting, and we form a commission there to investigate all the dealings that the interim executive director was doing, because we were kept in the dark. We said, we are not paying our debts, we cannot pay anything, and you keep hiring people? I mean, without our knowledge, without the general manager that at that time was Dr. Kamau, this person report to Dr. Kamau? No. You put a general manager and he doesn't have control of personnel? As a response, Friday, Dr. Kamau was fired. We are trying to deal with the issue.
So there seems to be a lot of organizational dysfunction within the...
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If I can just introduce you really quick.
Sure.
This is Greg Audel.
Audel.
Audel, and he's the Interim Development Director of KPFT, and he's with us here today.
That's right, and Adriana did a really good job of explaining it. I mean, it's bizarre that the previous general manager had not met our pledge drive goals in approximately 10 years, but he was just allowed, and I think in part because of his friendships, to stay on and on and on. And I'm proud of the programming that KPFT has had. We've done a great job in programming, but weird things have happened with the finances. And I am the interim development director, and I have to know that the books are good, go to people and ask them to give us money. And so I was happy that the board asked for an investigation of Mr. Crosier, because I've seen a lot of things that just don't make sense, particularly when he fires Dr. Kamau with absolutely no warning, no plan of things that Dr. Kamau should work on. He had let, the board had let the other guy on for years and years and years. And the first time we have an African-American general manager, he's fired in 90 days with no warning. That is absolutely bizarre. And then the directors of every department Friday were fired, and appears to be retaliation for supporting Dr. Kamau. And I think the shenanigans that went on with Mr. Crosier and our previous general manager are strange. I was told the previous general manager was supposed to assist me in raising funds, reaching out to large donors. He explained to me that he didn't know anyone like that and couldn't really help me. I explained it to Mr. Crosier, and he just kept making sure the previous general manager was paid during the same 90 days that Dr. Kamau was faulted for not bringing in more money. You can't turn a ship around in 90 days. Not one like KPFT is complex, with a history and problems that are complex. I don't know what's going on, but I don't believe for a second that we've heard the right story. I absolutely think it's curious that this occurred the day after the board voted to investigate Dr. Kamau, and I think it's also strange. The interim
executive director,
and
Crosier.
Yes, Bill Crosier. And what I also think is strange, he appears to have replaced him with an elderly man who I am told does not use computers or email. And at a time when the board is trying to investigate the financial dealings, it's interesting that you would replace a librarian who's very skilled with computers with someone who I believe does not use computers. It's all very, very strange, and it doesn't make any logical sense at all. And the last thing we want to do is tear apart the KPFT community. We're here because we love the KPFT community. The diversity diversity of the community. That's what KPFT is about. It's not about old white men putting on more country music. That is not what KPFT is about.
If I want to add something to that, the person that is being put now supposedly in charge, like general manager, I think that the idea originally, I mean, he's a good man. He have during 30, 40 years a program.
He's a great DJ, I'll give him that.
A great DJ. And during all these 15 years previous to that, the previous general manager was making a division among programmers, saying, well, it's music against news. And convince the music people that the news, and they put everybody that he doesn't want, like news people, want to take care or take off from them the music. Now what happened, they elect somebody that is well-liked from everybody. I love him, but clearly represent the music. And the music people are there trying to say, nobody will touch our music. And it's a division that doesn't exist.
And it shouldn't, because that is part of what makes KPFT special, is we have amazing music, we have incredible DJs, and we have incredible public affairs programs. Sure. And to be KPFT, we must marry those two. We cannot be one or the other, or we would cease to be the KPFT that's existed for 47 years.
We also have HD stations, which probably needs more programming. Well, I know it does. It needs more programming. But here for me, you know, as a black woman, to accuse somebody of racism is not a pleasant chore. And I don't want to have to do that, but I also know it when I see it. I'm not 20 or 30 or even 50. I'm a lot older than that. And in my years, racism can be overt. You know, somebody call you the N-word, somebody call you boy, you know, somebody being told to sit down and twiddle their chopsticks because they're Asian. All that happens today. That just kind of doesn't make sense. And there are those, I call them melanin challenged friends, they're not as dark as I am, who say, I didn't hear that. Or, you know, it's not that big a deal. Somebody should do what they call a Trump salute, but a Hitler the is an intimidating factor.
That happened at our board meeting.
And those are the kinds of things that happen at our board meeting. The other thing is that the individual that we're investigating also created a movement called Move KPFT Forward. And he talked to some people who were Latino and talked to some people that were black. But for the most part, he was trying to get rid of Latino and black people that were on the board. And he put together this slate, this huge slate. We now have, out of a 24-member board, 17 people who are white.
And of those who he tried to fire on Friday, 3 out of the 4, I was the only white person that was let go. Everyone else was African American. Yeah.
All right, so there seems to be some very serious racially charged aspects.
Oh yeah, you hear people say, you know, in the last few weeks you've heard people say they're taking over, and we knew exactly who they were.
Well, they said it. You know, one of the things that probably discourages a lot of people from KPFT is this aspect of it with progressive radio. It's one thing when, you know, the Southerner or the KKK or the alt-right does this. You don't expect them to do any differently, and they admit to who they are.
Right.
But when progressives, that we're all supposed to be on the same side, and it seems like the pattern is anybody that doesn't agree with you, they change the narrative.
Right.
Well, and Mr. Crosier has stated, you know, that it has nothing to do with race, but he can't explain why Dr. Kamau was held to a dramatically different standard than every other executive or general manager in our 47-year history and in Pacifica history. He's not been able to explain that. There's got to be some reason.
Well, his privilege does not even allow him to feel that he has to, because he has other people to support that supposition that it was about money. But when you're the one that's spending the money, when you're the one not telling people what really happened, I'm sorry if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. More than likely, it's a duck. And of course, they make fun of me saying that. So I put up something else on social media. And it's a scene from A Time to Kill with Samuel Jackson and Matthew McConaughey. And it's the scene at the end of the show, the end of the movie, where Matthew McConaughey has to defend his supposition that Samuel Jackson's character should be exonerated from killing the men who almost killed his daughter in a violent rape, and she was less than 10. And he tells this story of all the things that happened to this little girl. And he tells the jury to close their eyes and to listen to his story. And people, as they're listening to it, even the audience, tears are rolling down their face when they listen to the horror of what happened to this little girl. And then he waits a huge pregnant pause, and he says, now imagine she was white. And I use that movie to say, what would you have done if the former general manager was in any way treated the way Dr. Kamau was treated? And you know what? Silence. Because in the end, they don't want to talk about what everybody else sees. And it's sad because I was 14 when Dr. King died. He had been here in Houston just months before with Joan Baez and Aretha Franklin. And I'm going to a school that's predominantly white. And I come to class in April, the day after he was assassinated. And my black friends are sitting in the cafeteria. I didn't know what had happened. But they were sitting out there together because the principal, who was white, would not put the flag at half-mast, as President Johnson had asked. And I was an honor roll student, and I worked in the office, and I thought I could run in there and ask the principal. And he said, I'll fix it. After that first period class, we came outside and we looked up at that pole that carried the flag, and it said, find me. There was no flag. He took it all the way down. My black friends wanted me to know that I was just like them, that I wasn't special, that I thought these white people made me special, but they didn't. My white friends said on the other side, I can't believe you picked that communist over us. I sat in that sea of black and white at 14. This is 50 years later, and we are fighting the same fight.
Yes.
Somebody's not doing their work. In 50 years, I have traveled around this country, and I've traveled abroad. I've been with Palestinians and Israelis that are working together. I've been where Muslims and Hindus are living together. I have seen where Native people have finally been able to go to their sacred lands and do ceremonies in Peru. My issue is, we can solve these problems, but we have to call it what it is. And KPFT represents all that is wrong with society, and it is about race, it is sexism, it is privilege and class, and that is not what the mission of KPFT is, and that is what we're fighting for.
Thank you so much for sharing such a powerful narrative with us here today, especially something so near to you. There seems to be a lot of subtle racism going on, and then a lot of gaslighting of the experiences of people.
You want to define gaslighting for our audience?
But isn't most racism subtle these days? You know, because people don't like to think of themselves as behaving in a racist manner. So they do it with a smile. They do it with justification, and they do it with justification in their own minds. And I think that's part of what's going on here.
Indeed, they do. So gaslighting, just to explain the term, is when a person shares their narrative, their truth, their story, and then someone else undercuts them by saying, "Oh, that's all in your head. You're taking this from the wrong point of view. You know, that wasn't really what you thought. This is what you should have thought about that."
Absolutely.
Would be an example.
I have little signs that I hold up in meetings. I've got white-splaining, mansplaining, and gaslighting as 3 of the ones that I hold up on a regular basis.
Well, you know, part of that culture, like we said, is we know that at this point we know that this is coming up in our country. We were thinking that we evolved that much in the last 30, 40 years. And when you see politically that we did not. But it's worse when you see it in Pacifica and KPFT. Because, like Piquet said, sometimes you see a Ku Klux Klan member and they believe and they are showing their true colors. The problem in Pacifica, and especially in KPFT, is that people say a different thing. They look at you. I mean, it's easier to make character assassination, talk about you are a speak, you are a dumb boy, play with your chopsticks. I mean, those kind of things are a permanent remark with a smile. Look at the woman and said, "Did you take your hormones today?" You know, in open meetings, in front, making the Nazi salute and then said that was a Trump salute. I mean, this is happening. It's worrisome when that happened in KPFT, because we are supposed to be progressive. We are work for the, you know, people understanding each other. That is our mission. Then that doesn't have room in KPFT. Doesn't have room in Pacifica, and the attitude against Dr. Kamau is very clear. It's the reflection of that. It's a justification. That's it.
I would like to bring the man of the hour into the conversation. Dr. Kamau is here with us today.
The man of the hour got lost. I sincerely apologize.
It is okay.
And I thank you for your patience, and I thank my colleagues for holding it down.
They've done an absolutely excellent job.
I know. I haven't even heard them, and I know.
So is there anything you would like to say on this?
Well, I would like to say that, first of all, I understand Adriana's frustration because it's not supposed to happen in this arena. It's not supposed to happen in this entity, but I am not surprised. I am always disappointed. PK can tell you, and that we go on in spite of and often ignore. I have to some degree been reticent to use the race card, even though that's clearly what it is. But the only reason I have been reticent to use it is because it is a word that is no longer understood, and it's very loosely applied to several situations that are not necessarily racist. So let me tell you how I define racism. Racism is an attitude that can negatively impact the physical and material life of the group of people against whom racism is directed. So,
Talking like a librarian.
yeah, I'm going to tell I was a sociology minor. But it's a very important, you know, in the academy, you operationalize the term so that when you use the term, everybody in that conversation has agreed on what that term means. In this society, it's not agreed on what the word race means. Many people who are prejudiced against a group of people but are not racist because they don't have the power to materially impact their lives. I'm not standing up for prejudice. People who are prejudiced would materially affect the lives of the group of people they are prejudiced against if they could, but they can't, so they dislike them. but racism is when you can impact someone's lives. And I think that what we have attempted to do at KPFT is move this station in another direction. And I think the change is often frightening, and I think that it bothers people. So surely there are some things that I, as a black male, have had to do that other general managers have not had to do, including this revenue enhancement plan that I created or that was created and submitted. Now, the previous station manager did not have to do a plan, nor has the gentleman who is in, they have tried to place in that position, has not had to do an enhancement plan. The financial status of the station that has been slowly like sinking into this financial netherworld, if you will, is something that has been going on for 15 years. KPFT has not met a fund goal, but one fund goal, let me be correct, in 40 years. I'm sorry, in 10 years. There are supposed to be an average of 4 fund drives a year. At KPFT, that has turned into 1 every other month, or 6 fund drives. When I came on board, one of the things that I was determined to do, and this was stated very clearly, is to move off the fund drive model, to move away from it. So the fund drive that we had that is in question, which occurred January the 15th through the 30th, there were several things, June. 15th through the 30th, there were several things wrong with how that fund drive was conducted. First of all, the staff wanted to start the fund drive after the 4th.
And this was the summer sizzle.
Yes. We wanted to start the summer sizzle after the 4th, and we would have been better served had we done that. We were pushed into starting the summer sizzle early. And I have to some degree take responsibility for that because I knew what our cash flow situation was, and I was pushed into it by somebody who assumes that it's terrible. And right now, there are people who are on the air stating that we can't make payroll. And that's
absolutely not true.
It's not true. So we started it first. We lost. Normally, fund drives run 21 days.
Right.
This one ended up being 16 days because of when we started and because we had to let the 4th weekend go because we knew we wouldn't be effective. During that fund drive, there was an entire day that was wonderful programming where 1984 was read aloud, 15 hours. Very interesting and, great, I listened to it. But everything raised that day went to the entire foundation. So we had to take a whole day out of our fund drive, and the day after that, we finally begun getting pledges in, but we had taken people kind of off with the fund drive. Another thing to just make plain is that fund drive, that day-long fund drive that went out over the entire foundation, made less than $30,000. This is not a unique KPFT problem, and this is not a problem that started with this summer sizzle. As a matter of fact, the fund drives have increasingly made less and less money. And it's done that because we have gone back to the same people over and over again. And Greg laughs and talks about how he used to switch from the public radio station that was having the fund drive.
I'm embarrassed to say, but I absolutely did.
To one who didn't. So those are some of the things that we were up against. Staff morale was poor. Won't go into any details about that. And the station was relatively ineffective. There's also a culture which has been discussed relatively extensively of people who want things to stay the way they are, and they laugh at me because I say the fund drive is like crack to Pacificans. That's what they are addicted to as it comes to raising revenue, and it's simply a failing model. So
Well, I'd like to say, you know, from the time Dr. Kamau came on board and he brought me on board, the one thing we agreed on was pledge drives just aren't working anymore because of people like me. Because I hear a pledge drive, I change the dial. Sometimes I would donate, sometimes I wouldn't. So we started building in major events and other revenue enhancements. We have a whole underwriting team that Dr. Kamau has been very active in supporting, because we've been saying to anyone that would listen, we will go down if we rely on pledge drives. Look at the last 10 years. We can tell you they do not work. So while we were trying to execute this pledge drive, we were also planning events, we were planning new initiatives, new programs. We were doing everything we could to catch up to the 21st century of fundraising when it comes to public media. It's insane to me that we just kept doing the same thing, year after year after year. And when it didn't work on Dr. Kamau's first time, they said, oh my goodness, we have to get rid of you, without any real explanation as to why that is.
Or any kind of analysis. The analysis is false. That's the biggest problem. The analysis for why we are failing is false. It says that it's false because not everybody is doing their part. But more, they're saying that it failed because he's not the person to make it not fail. He's been obstructed. He's been hampered. I mean, individuals are going to other individuals and talking about each of us to people that look like them, not recognizing that that person may not think like them. And also failing to realize my community is very diverse. I put on, when Mandela died, I got the interfaith community together over at the Roscoe Chapel. 13 different faiths were represented that day. When the killing happened in South Carolina, we got the interfaith community. I don't just know black people. And that's where I'm getting most of my information. When somebody goes to a white person and says, they're trying to make our station black, they can't be talking about me, because here's who I'm bringing: the Filipino and other Asian communities, the Hindu and Muslim communities from the Indian community in India, from CARE, from the Beloved community. If they knew me, which they supposedly do, they would know that this isn't my attempt to make it anything other than a culturally diverse community. Back 10 years ago, I did a thing called Where is the Community in Community Radio? And I used the hashtag Got Community, like Got Milk. Where is the community in community radio? You know the answer to that?
Not at the radio station.
Well, that's,
the community was escorted out by the police.
But community is everywhere. The difference is this one faction, when you look, they mostly look like themselves. And I have just said to them always, if you're in a room with people who only look like you, but the people that are a part of what's happening don't all look like you can't make decisions for those communities. And that's where they're really failing. They are in charge. Their white privilege makes them think that they can make no mistakes. But they are making mistakes, and they know they're making mistakes. So if they're making mistakes, maybe the real question is, why would they continue supporting a sinking ship? Who benefits if KPFT, WBAI, Pacifica goes under? Who benefits?
Well, that's a real tricky question. I want to go ahead and let Greg come back in, but and we hadn't even thought about this. My business manager and I were just talking. Well, you've hired 3 people that are part-time people because we have not been able to support any more full-time staff. But I have hired 3 people, and all 3 of them, for what it's worth, are white. So when I realized that, I just kind of had to laugh.
Well, I guess I'm supposed to say traitor, but that's not. That's who we are.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, something else, you know, when we're talking about the subtle racism, which was interesting, one obsession of Mr. Crozier's was to fire one African-American employee. And it's not really the executive director of Pacifica's job to decide specific hiring and firing decisions within an organization. But the previous general manager had over a year to observe this young man and to decide whether or not he should be fired or not. Both Mr. Crosier and the previous general manager told Obidike, oh, one of the first things you have to do is fire this guy.
Why you didn't do it?
Exactly. Why didn't they do it? Why didn't they do it? Why is it the African-American general manager's duty to fire the African-American employee before he had any ability to assess, you know, what type of employee he was? And this is gospel truth. I challenge Mr. Crosier to say that this is not the truth.
Well, it's more than that. We know that it's somebody that was promised a board member that now is in the national board and is part of this move to, you know, fire all the black people. That person was promised, and we have proof of that, and that person was promised a full-time job at KPFT. And they need to fire some people that have full-time jobs, you know. And I mean, this is ridiculous, but it's like now it's like a firing squad, you know, through the whole network. And the idea is, what is behind? I mean,
it's cronyism. That's what it is. It's cronyism. It is not about community right now. Those that are behind these actions are absolutely violating every sense of community that KPFT has built for over 47 years. And we are fighting like hell to bring the community back into our community radio station. And let me say, as a staff member, I have never seen a staff go from 0 to 60 like they did when Dr. Kamau came on and be so excited about working together and about new initiatives and about being listened to. And I don't know, I think that scared some people.
I want to say that that perhaps this is one of the best things that has happened to Pacifica, because it's forced some individuals to face themselves. And these kinds of actions have taken place throughout the foundation in just a very short period of time. And people in Houston stood up. I almost got emotional after this thing started building up and the support started building. And talking about diverse, talking about community, the people in that Friday meeting, just last Friday, were truly PK's community and community radio. But it's really not about me. I'm the person who happens to be in this position. And, you know, maybe my personality has something to do with it. The staff, and I was told how horrible the staff was, and that I may not even want to come do this simply because of the staff. I have experienced the exact opposite, and the people that I have been able to bring on have fit in. And when this disruption occurred on Tuesday, we were in a staff meeting, and we were having a productive staff meeting. It simply kept getting interrupted. And I would say that Mr. Crosier's actions toward the 3 individuals who were fired, and that's questionable, and we are questioning it, and that is questioning is ongoing and intense. But the 3 people, Mr. Crosier did fire me illegally outside of the realm of the bylaws. But I am the only person on that staff that he could be involved in firing. No one else on the staff other than the general manager can the executive director be involved in their hiring or firing. So for him to actually sign those termination letters himself as the executive director and go inside the staff of a local station and attempt to make those terminations is frankly one of the, you know, without trying to be demeaning, silliest administrative moves I have ever made and I've ever seen. And it, you know, tends to lend credence to the fact when people say he's out of control. That was just amazing that he would do that. He did not even allow the gentleman that he illegally brought in sign those termination letters. It's amazing to me.
I think that something that is important here too, The Pacifica bylaw, the California Corporation Code for Nonprofit, have specific codes that we need to use, have procedure. The Pacifica Foundation have their own. The question in here goes deeper. If you have all the means to do things in the right way, because everybody have the right to fire, an employee, if that employee is not, having the performance that you are asking for. But all supposed to have a specific procedure that doesn't allow, when you go and you violate all those procedures, your own, the only thing that you are doing is bringing a huge liability to the foundation. Because those individuals can sue the foundation. The people that take those actions, they will not pay. That will bankrupt the Pacifica Foundation.
Absolutely.
When you, my question is this, if you have all the elements in your hand to do it legally, why you do it illegal? Why? What is the reason behind? You need to question what is behind. It's not a conspiracy theory, but you're thinking, why? They have all the elements, they have all the power, they have the majority, they have the major, executive positions. Then do it legally. Don't do it like that.
And why immediately, the day after the board votes to investigate him for financial and personnel mismanagement, why is it suddenly urgent within 24 hours to violate all the procedures, to ignore the wonderful job he's done? Why?
It's more, I keep going because I know that it's history, but it's all part of this. I'm a board member since 2013. I'm not these people that have 20 years in Pacifica. I started in 2013 and I approached the radio because I like some programs and I approached, ran and won and whatever. My problem with this is, for example, we were talking a minute ago about underwriting. We don't agree in everything. I don't agree with underwriting, for me personally, but we are in a democratic institution. We are supposed to sit at the table and discuss, and the majority decide, and the minority is supposed to support and try to control too, that the majority doesn't do whatever without any control. My worry in this is, what is behind? What is happening? How could that be that we call the radio for peace, and we are the one calling the police? We are the one saying, we close the door, we don't let the community come in. KPFT is owned by the members, as Pacifica is. We have $25. With $25, you will be a member, and you have the right to vote and the right to elect the people that will represent you. How many institutions in this country are like this? If it's like that, why don't we apply it? Why we are not democratic? Why we are coming there and tell community we are afraid? We don't want the community here. That doesn't make any sense. What is behind? And like I said, took me since 2013. According to our bylaws, when you are in the board of directors, not the local station board, in the Pacifica Board of Directors, that I was voted in 2014, then you have the right to go and make an inspection. They call it director inspection, that is allowed by the California Corporation Code. And they need to show you, I can go there and say, show me, the receipt. I start my first director's inspections in November 2014. I have some things that never were even answered,
But they've made you into, they have vilified her very well.
When I became active, one thing I knew was that Adriana was crazy and she was dangerous. You should not talk to her. And let me say, I absolutely believed that for a long period of time until I started listening to what she was saying. And they weren't hysterical, they weren't crazy. She was asking for answers. And it wasn't until I heard Bill Crosier lie to me personally that I understood the frustration that some board members get when a nice smiley guy, pats them on the back and lies to their face over and over again. And I started to understand the rage with which many people face Mr. Crosier. And I also want to say that Dr. Kamau got a vote of support from the board a month ago, and he has the full support of the immediate past president of the board and the current chairman of the board.
PK, you were going to say something.
Well, this idea that they've been controlling the narrative. They've got a thing called Pacifica in Exile, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of words and newsletters that are sent out telling us what happened. And I say to people all the time when they say, well, Adriana does, or Nancy dances around, or whatever they say about these individuals. Dwayne Lark is always calling us racist. My response to them is, you created them. When you don't, first of all, leadership is about service. It's not about control. Yeah. I mean, that is primarily the difference. If you can't make your staff work together, if you can't inspire your staff to work together, because you can't tell anybody anything. I've worked in corporations where what the employees do is a slowdown. Oh, the machine's broke. I can't do that, because people are telling them what to do. And then somebody comes in there and, the new boss at a place that I worked, he came and he said, who are you and what do you do? And I said, well, nobody's ever asked me that. My job description is XYZ. He said, but who are you and what do you do? So then I started telling him a little bit about me. If you don't know about the person that's working with you, you're doing a poor job of knowing how to inspire that person differently than the other person. Greg and I don't work alike. Adriana and I don't work alike. And here's the thing. Sometimes I say to Adriana when she's getting ready to say something, let me say it.
Yes.
Not because I say it better, or not because I say it without her accent, but because it doesn't matter what she says sometimes in these meetings. They are not going to hear her because they have done a great job of vilifying her.
Yes.
And now they're trying with me. And you know what? Every time they write something about me, I put it up so everybody can see. Because my reputation either speaks for itself or it doesn't. I have only two things that I have complete control over: my ethics and my integrity. And I'm not going to lie to you, even if I do something wrong. And I'm not going to dehumanize you, even if you've done something wrong. What they've done to this woman, to me, is criminal.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And the continued abuse of that nature has to stop. And the only way to stop it is to take it to the streets. Friday, what I've been saying is happening at KPFT. I sat back and let them see it for themselves Friday. And when they put out what they did about myself and the chair, the people that were there were able to say, that you said it, that's not true, that's not what happened. They have done things covertly. This one man has gotten other people to do his dirty work. He didn't come to the station and do it. He's a coward. And I'm saying that because if you're so sure about what you've done, change the locks. Put everything in place. But you know it's wrong. You know it's wrong because you can't do it. So what do? He's victimized an older man who has no business, and I'm saying that, being a general manager. He has no skill sets. And that's an insult to Dr. Kamau. At least go and get the best person for the job. Don't you have better friends that you could have chosen? But no, he chose this person because in the end, this person is only a placeholder.
Right.
What they're planning on doing is something more nefarious. The perfidy that goes on with these individuals that we know by name has gone on long enough because this is not the first time that they've tried it. But this time, they've got a little bit more money and they've got a little bit more numbers. But some of the people that they've chosen, like Greg, have said, whoa, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And that's the only thing that I can keep going. Look at it for yourself. But we can turn KPFT around.
Absolutely.
We can. You know, we're
will.
talking about, we will, a rebranding competition. More people coming, more people having a stake in what's happening. And I will tell you this, Hannah, my favorite name of the woman in the Bible that I love. And the reason that I love her is because it looked impossible for something that she wanted. Very, very impossible. And when she got it, it's because she accepted it. And I'm accepting my role because I know I'm not by myself. But here's what KPFT is really for, our future. It's a legacy to my grandson because the archives contain history of the civil rights movement, and they don't get to control that. In the Latino community, Cesar Chavez and all of the individuals, Stephen Biko even, you know, that's in our archives, and that belongs to the future, and they cannot have that. And if they don't like what I'm saying, all I'm going to tell you is this. If anybody says I committed suicide, they lied. I'm not saying that that would happen. But what I am saying is I think I can take it. I think we can all take it. I think we are all taking it. And we're standing up even when they're popping us with rubber bullets of lies and deceit.
And invective.
And
let me say, this is not fun. None of us are having fun, and none of us are getting rich by working for community radio. No. We are involved because we believe in the mission of KPFT, and as PK said, we believe in honoring those that came before us to build this amazing thing called KPFT, and we love bringing young people in and students into the radio station because it is their station. That's what we're doing it for. I mean, we are, and it is horrible to be in this battle. Nobody likes it, but we're also not going to let a good man who we respect be vilified and be treated differently than every other white general manager. Something is very, very wrong.
Speaking of airing grievances and having your voices heard, there will be an open meeting, open to the public, at 7 p.m. this Friday at the SHAPE Community Center on 3903 Alameda Road. That's 3903 Alameda Road, 7 p.m. this Friday. If you'd like to attend, air your grievances, it's open to the public. Anyone can come.
We ask the public to come and be involved in this. Let's just see what happens. My wish at this point is to get back to what we were doing. The most frustrating thing about this whole thing is being short-stopped and not allowed for these seeds that have been planted to begin to bear fruit. At the meeting that was disrupted on Tuesday, the staff, we are in the process, you know, should things play out, of implementing a digital marketing strategy that has great potential. And the staff there, before the meeting was ultimately disrupted, loved it. And I wish you could see some of our staff meetings. I think that there are a particular interaction, cooperation, and dynamism that's heartening.
Let the community come Friday. We need the community. We need to show who owns Pacifica.
And we have nothing to hide.
Right.
We have no actions to hide.
Transparency.
We are happy to share everything we think and do with the public.
Transparency should be there.
You're a great host. I want to say
Thank
that
you.
on the air.
Thank you. In our last few seconds, I would like to say some things very quickly. One is that racism is a problem in the white community, and it's something we need to have discussions at our dinner tables about, and we should not rely on people of color to fix it for us. Secondly, if you're going to be a white ally, that is a proactive role that you should take, and you should act to be the stage and microphone for the voices of people of color and other minorities in your community, whether it's a physical, whatever disability or minority it is. You need to be the stage and the microphone, not the band. Anyway, thank you so much all for being here today and talking about this very important issue. This has been Green Watch.
Thank you.
Change your world.
Thank you.
With power, here they come. international loan sharks, backed by the guns of market-hungry military profiteers, whose word is a swamp and whose brow is smeared with the blood of the poor.